Hi students, welcome to HSC Chemistry and the Chemical Monitoring and Management video series. This is number 26 on membrane filters. In the last video we had a little bit of a look at the SAF-CAF process and how water is treated both physically and chemically in order to purify it so that it's potable, so that it's fit for drinking. Now the purification of water, one of those key steps is filtration. And we have a number of sand, gravel and also charcoal filters which are quite fine, which allow a large number of quite fine particles to be filtered out of the water before it moves through into the next stages. But unfortunately, there can still be a very large number of different types of particles that are still present even after these filtration processes have occurred. Suspended particles that may be very small that have passed through the gravel and charcoal filters, oil emulsions, bacteria and other very small cellular organisms. Some colloidal hazes or viruses, macromolecules and proteins, and even when we get down to them, some individual ions. Now all of these are often too small to be captured by other filtration techniques, and so what we need to do is we need to use things called membrane filters in order to remove these particulates and some of the very tiny microorganisms. Membrane filters are very fine polymer filters, so they are a link right back to our initial discussions in the first topic on plastics. So different types of plastics which are used in the purification of contaminated waters. You'll notice that we used terms like microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration and also reverse osmosis as processes that are designed to try and capture increasingly smaller numbers of smaller particles that are present in the water. At each of these stages we need to make sure that there are a couple of important things about our filters. Firstly, that they have a very large surface area so that we're able to maximize the exchange. That they're very, very fine, that each of these holes, if you like to think about it, in each of these polymers is very, very tiny. That's going to be able to trap particles on one side but allow water to pass through on the other side. And ultimately we have the reverse osmosis process, which basically works by osmosis is a semi-permeable membrane where if we have salt solutions, salt solution. If we have a dilute salt solution, that means lots of water, and on the other side a concentrated salt solution, then the water is actually going to migrate across in order to try and establish an equilibrium between these two. This process is called osmosis, and it's basically the movement of water from an area where there's lots of water to areas where there is less. So from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution, a process of diffusion. But the problem is this is not what we want when we are trying to purify water. We actually want the water to go to make even less of a salt solution. We want to get rid of the salt particles or the ions that are dissolved in the solution. So in order to do that, we actually have to work against the osmotic pressure. So the osmotic pressure is basically going to push the water in this direction. We want it to become even more dilute. In fact, we want to try and remove all of the ions altogether if possible, which is practically impossible. But as long as the levels are below certain guidelines, then that water will be potable. So in order to do that, we have to increase the pressure. So there's a pressure differential that's created in order to force the water to go where we want it to go rather than where it's naturally going to go. The use of membrane filters has several advantages. Firstly, very much smaller particles than sand, paper, gravel, or charcoal filters can be removed from the water, and so that makes this a much more efficient process. And so that is definitely something that we want for water that we're going to ultimately drink. The membrane filters themselves are very thin, and hence we can have quite a rapid flow rate. Now this is important when we want to look at the rate of water treatment or the volume of water that can be treated over a certain time frame, say volume per hour. So we can do this much higher with very thin membranes made of plastic, which are a little bit stronger and therefore can withstand higher pressures, but are able to allow large amounts of water to pass through them in a very small period of time. And one of the big advantages of these membrane filters, these plastic polymer membrane filters, is that we can flush them, we can reuse them, drive the water in the opposite direction and clean out all the garbage that's been collected in these filters in order that we can reuse them. So one of the very important things that we need to remember about polymers, knowing that one of the problems that we have with the use of plastics is the amount of waste that they create. So being able to reuse these is a really big plus. Thanks for watching.